So here what we're going to do is write the decimal number in the standard form. It's given in words here, and we're going to write it in the decimal form. Read the words carefully. Notice that there's the word and. So if we have to write it as a decimal, that has to change to a decimal point. So let's first look at the whole number part. 60,025. So let's write this down. 60,000, and then we have to, if it's a number in the thousands, then there has to be 3 more decimal places in the number, and the rest of these 3 blanks have to read 25. So put your 25 at the end, and 025 reads 25. Don't write down 250, that would be 250,000. So here it's 25,000, and so I'm going to put a decimal point, 401. So that's the number, and read the last part. That's what tells you how many decimal place values this number has. 10 thousandths. So tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10 thousandths is the next one. And there are 4 decimal place values, and the number has to read 401. Now, if we did 401, we would be forced to add a 0 at the end. Now that will not be a 401 anymore. It's going to be 4010. So in order to make it read 401, I'm going to write it down at the end and put a 0 right after the decimal place value. So it has 4 decimal places, and it also reads 401. So it's 60,025 and 401 10 thousandths. 9,000 and 9 thousandths. So the word and tells you there's a decimal point. 9,000, that's pretty clear. 9,000 and nothing else, so it's just 9,000 and 9 thousandths. Read the ending. The end tells you how many decimal place values. It says thousandths, so that's tenths, hundredths, thousandths. And remember that these 3 places together have to read just 9, not 900. If I place the 9 in the beginning, I would be forced to put 2 zeros after that because I have to fill 3 blanks. But then that would become 900 thousandths. So that is not an option. It is 9 thousandths. So it is 009. So it's 9,000 and 9, 3 decimal places. So it says 9 thousandths. Let's read the next one. Remember that the word and separates the whole number from the decimal portion. 3,542,000. 542. It's in the millions. So there are 3 more places that we have to fill with zeros. When you read back, it has to read 3,542,000, and it's in the thousandths, so I know I have to fill 3 blanks, and the number has to read 304. So when you read back, it is 3,542,000 and 304 thousandths. Okay, let's look at the next one. We have the word and, which tells us that there is a whole number on the left and a decimal portion on the right. 722,000. So 722,000. So read it back to yourself. Make sure it's reading 722,000, and so that adds a decimal point. 32 thousandths. The word thousandths tells us how many decimal place values, and what it needs to read is 32. So 032. Do not put 320 because that would not be 32. That would be 320 thousandths. Let's look at the next one. 82,600,000. So 82 million. Million tells me there are 6 more blanks to fill. 82,600,000. So the next period is the thousands. So that is 600,000.
GPS signal lost.
So that would be the next. And so the and would mean 0.304 ten thousandths. 10 thousandths tells me there are 4 decimal place values. So just be careful. Just figure out how many decimal place values first. 304 is what it has to read. So the ending has to be 304. Put a 0 after the decimal point and it'll read 304 ten thousandths. Do not put 3040 because that would read 3040 ten thousandths, and that's not what we need. Now here we're going to see the connection or the relationship between mixed numbers and decimal numbers. So 1.9, how do we read it in words? It's 1 and 9 tenths. So just as we read it, we're going to write down the mixed number. It's 1 and, so that gives us the fraction 9 tenths. So here it's 201 thousandths. There is no whole number, so it will be a proper fraction. 201 thousandths. Tenths, hundredths, thousandths. That's where the thousand comes from. So it's a proper fraction, 201 thousandths. The way we're going to read this is 5 and 2 tenths. And we write it as a mixed number exactly the way we read it. 5 and 2 tenths. There's no whole number, so this is going to give us a proper fraction. The way we read it in words in the decimal form is 75 hundredths. Hundredths because this is your tenths and that's your hundredths. 75 hundredths. Now let's read this in the decimal form first. It's 32 and 905. We read the number just the way it is, but at the end, since there are 3 decimal place values, we say thousandths. So 32 and 905 thousandths. And clearly, if we can write a number in the mixed number form, we can also write it as an improper fraction. So for example, 14 and 6 tenths. That's how we read this decimal number. So it's 14 and 6 tenths. And we can also write this as an improper fraction. This is how we do it. 14 times 10. 14 times 10 plus 6. The whole thing divided by a 10. So it's 140 plus 6, 146 tenth. Okay. Now, when we see numbers presented in the decimal form, we have to be able to say which one is greater, right? So if we have 8.530 and 8.503, so if the whole numbers are the same, then we look at the decimal part. We go to the tenths, same, so there's no difference. When we go to the hundredths place, we see that the first number is larger than the second number. We have a 0 here and a 3 here, so that would give us 8.530 is greater than 8.503. Now let's look at the next one. The whole number is the same, so we cannot differentiate at that point. The tenths place has the same number. The hundredths place has the same number. The thousandths has the same number. Same until this point. We have a 0 here technically because there's nothing, right? And then notice that this is a 9, which is larger. So the number on the left is less than the number on the right. Do the exact same thing here. 2 is the whole number part, exactly the same. The next 4 zeros, 1, 2, 3, 4, exactly the same. Then we have a 1, exactly the same. There's no difference until we hit this point because technically there's nothing there, which is a 0, and there's a 2 here, which is greater. So the number on the left is less than the number on the right.